name is Beth Curtis, in case you didn't remember or didn't know me if you were a freshman. I graduated last year in 2013, like John said. My epiphany, like many, is really a personal revelation, a personal growth. For much of high school, much of my life really, I was caught in the trap of people-pleasing. I've always intuitively understood people, and thus I could say whatever somebody wanted to hear, or do whatever they wanted to see done. I wanted everyone to like me, and other people's disapproval was a fear and enemy of mine. I could do whatever it took to make sure that everybody ended up happy. Last year, I began to notice this people-pleasing penchant of mine, and I became increasingly frustrated with myself. I think that most of our issues in this world come down to our perceptions of our own worth and the worth that others assign to us. People-pleasing is no exception here. If we could just trust others to love us, regardless of what we say or do, then we wouldn't be constantly scrambling to try to earn their love. What I've learned, my epiphany of sorts, is that you can make people happy, but that you cannot make them love you. This summer, I worked at Spruce Lake Wilderness Camp as a counselor. I left the morning after graduation, and with such a crazy, hectic life, it didn't take long for me to become tired, empty, and burnt out, the prime conditions for meeting Jesus. At camp, I learned that I could make my campers happy, but they still might not love me, and I can fail them in every way, and they still might love me wholeheartedly. There was one camper that totally flew under my radar while at camp, always seemingly happy and content. After she went home, her mom wrote a passionate letter to my director saying how much her daughter disliked me and disliked camp. It was devastating to me. Even though there were some things about this girl and that week that were totally out of my control, the fact that I had failed her was very real to me. It was the grace that I found at camp that kept me going. I was surrounded by people that kept loving and affirming me in the face of my failure. They looked at me and said, "You're a great counselor and you love kids," even though I had obviously not done it that week. They reminded me that my time as a counselor wasn't reduced down to this one series of mistakes. They saw who I was as separate from my actions. I learned at camp about real grace in action, grace that tells us over and over again who we are and what we're worth. It's this grace that saved me. I could be loved even when I failed to do the next right thing. Since then, it's been a journey. People-pleasing controlled my life in big and small ways, and I had to learn to undo that. I also had to learn how to find a balance between always trying to make everyone else happy and living only for my own happiness. You should never swing from one extreme to the other. Service is a key part of Christianity, but too often people are taught to think that keeping everyone happy is a Christian pursuit, an act of service. If we want to follow Jesus' example, people-pleasing isn't a part of the deal. Jesus didn't try to make everyone happy. He loved people, but he also called people out. He preached against injustice. He did things that made some people very unhappy, and if this is the man we're following, we can't be afraid to do the same. I can't be afraid to do the same. We are tasked with bringing God's kingdom into reality on earth, and to do that, we need to use our voices to speak truth into a world that's used to being told what it wants to hear. We have an obligation to use our voices to call out the things of this world, the injustices and the wrongdoings and the brokenness. There will be people who cling to these things, and the truth will make them very unhappy. I go to an evangelical college, which at face value doesn't seem too different from my Anabaptist beliefs, but underneath is tellingly dissimilar. For example, the church associated with my college will not ordain women. I was never part of a church in which women were inferior, and so it came to explain the many reasons that women are unqualified to teach men. In my eyes, this is an injustice, and it doesn't do anybody any good if I keep quiet about what I believe. When my Bible teacher only ever quoted Paul and never quoted Jesus, I had to speak up. When the same teacher said that he believes in people who are wholly evil, I had to speak up. When worship became a show concerned only with being cool and relevant, I had to speak up. I certainly made some people unhappy, and I earned some labels, but I used my voice and spoke for what I believe to be truth and goodness. We are only given one voice and one life in this world, and we can't afford to waste them by seeking superficial approval. Even the best of us get off track, and in community, we have to speak up. We have to remind each other of truth. We have to remind each other of grace, reminding each other who we are and what we're working towards. So this is my epiphany. Speak up. Don't waste your talents making other people happy. You cannot earn their love. Instead, keep your eyes focused on Jesus and your life modeled after